Today's episode of Running It Back is here. It is ready, and it is a special Halloween edition of Running It Back. This week on the show, Brother Andrew from the Instagram site Murder Mecca joins me. He's back on the show talking true crime, and we go on a deep dive of the movie Candyman. Here's why. We got Halloween coming up. We've got true crime in this movie. We have multiple angles. And, of course, candy. Halloween. Get it? And the movie Candyman. We run it back big time on the movie. Not to mention all the tidbits of what went into this movie as far as its origin and in our own personal review of it. So, look forward to that. Before we get into the show, don't forget, see me doing live stand-up comedy November 11th. I am at Flappers Comedy Club. Come out and see me. Hit the link or reach out to me directly, and I can get you in there. You can see some live stand-up comedy from me as well as others on the show. It's going to be great. If you saw the last one, you know what I'm talking about. So, on the show tonight, we break down Candyman. It is the Halloween edition. As you will see, we are fully costumed for the show as well. So, Andrew Ramirez from the Murder Mecca Instagram site is here, and we tackle Candyman. Hey, Andrew. Candyman. 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 Oh, shit! Candyman right now. All right, let's do this. We are back. It is Running It Back. We are here with Brother Andrew, curator of the Murder Mecca Instagram handle, joining me for a special edition, Halloween edition. We're in costume. We have a special theme ready for this week, talking true crime, talking Halloween movies. Andrew has his costume. I have mine. Andrew has a special Godzilla background as well. We're ready.
Special edition. Halloween is upon us. Who's your favorite astronaut?
That's a good question. I'm going to go with Tom Hanks. Thank you.
Mine's Bill Paxton.
Ooh, that's good too.
He's good. He's the one that throws up on the spaceship.
Oh, one astronaut note. I'm going to say my favorite astronaut is Buzz Aldrin. I only say that because when I first moved to Utah and I worked in a ski shop, they had a celebrity ski weekend, and I got to get Buzz Aldrin his rental skis.
Oh, that's cool.
And I will say, here was my job at the rental ski shop for a celebrity weekend. Give them rental skis, size them for their boots, their ski poles, and then you send them off. Buzz Aldrin showed up with his boots already. He didn't need boots. He just needed skis, and he was good to go.
I bet once you get measured for space boots, I feel like you can't ever have a better measurement than that. You know, space boots would be the tightest, most perfectly fitting boots out there. So he probably just kept that measurement.
I just assumed they were ski boots in his bag, but they could have been his space boots from 1969.
You know, have you seen those videos of Buzz Aldrin punching reporters?
Yes, I have.
He's definitely my favorite of all the astronauts that went to the moon. I think he just has that, like, I don't take no shit from nobody attitude.
We almost should know more about our astronauts, shouldn't we? Because I really only know Buzz Aldrin and a couple other names.
I mean, Neil Armstrong is like the most famous one probably because he was the first one on the moon. And then Buzz is number 2. And honestly, after that, I don't think I could name you a single astronaut.
No, me neither.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I just know those two. And there's been so many of them that have done big things out there. I just know those two.
Does Jeff Goldblum count as an astronaut from Independence Day?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Paxton, Kevin Bacon.
Definitely.
Ryan Gosling. Actors who play astronauts are basically astronauts. I'm okay with that.
New segment for a future episode. Actors who play astronauts.
Yes.
Well, forget all that. It's Halloween. We're talking true crime. But not only that, we're tying in movies to the true crime as well for this episode. So, movie we selected for this episode, the movie from 1992, Candyman. Couple thoughts I had for this movie in choosing it. Number one, we have a classic scary movie. Number two, Candyman, candy on Halloween. Of course, we get that tie-in. And then from the research that I found out, a lot of true crime tie-in that came to this movie as well. And then not to mention the movie is just classic early 90s. There's so much fun stuff that we'll get into that I found out in all the research and in new categories as we break down the movie as well. So let's start out by getting fully in the mood for this episode. All right, we are officially Halloween ready. You're at a haunted house. I'm in a haunted graveyard. So let's start in talking Candyman. The first thing we need to kick off is the true crime. For this movie to happen, we have to have a lot of things converge at once. First, there's the true crime, from which the Candyman name actually comes from. Then there's the murder of Ruthie Mae McCoy, where the murderer comes in through the cabinet wall. That's where the idea of Candyman in the mirror comes from. And then lastly, we have the writing of the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker, from which the actual plot comes from for Candyman in 1992 to all come to one thing and make a movie. So much going on here. This movie isn't just taken from a true crime. There's a lot of stuff that's gone on just to make this movie. But let's start true crime and let's start Candyman. The name Candyman. How familiar were you with this true crime going into this?
I didn't even know about this true crime until we discussed that we were going to do this podcast a few weeks ago. Candyman is one of those movies that I've always lumped in with, the Leprechaun and Trolls, and those other kind of like goofy creature movies from the early 90s. I never really gave any thought to Candyman. And then when they made the remake, it kind of blipped on my radar, like, oh, okay, like, this is a story that they're going to tell again. And then our sister-in-law is the one who like told me about an article about like the projects in Chicago. And then she like mentioned Candyman. She was like, oh yeah, like that movie Candyman is based off of the projects in Chicago. And I was like, what? I was just like, there's so much information surrounding this movie. So when I started to research it, the movie like distinguished itself from all the other movies that came out in the 90s, So the background story is truly insane. You've got these buildings in the projects that are very basically designed, so you can literally punch out the bathroom cabinet mirror, and just have direct access to the apartment right across the way from you, getting to know that. And then like seeing the connections between like some robbers going into Ruthie's apartment and like the connection between like a Bloody Mary type villain, like going through the mirror. I was totally locked in. This is like, I love horror movies too, but this is like the perfect like parallel between like a cool urban legend style horror movie and like a true crime story that is like genuinely horrific when you think about like how it played out.
The notion of saying something into a mirror, and in the research, this was derived from the urban legend of saying Bloody Mary into a mirror. But Candyman, just the preview alone, where when you get the legend, you get the practice of like what happens. Okay, you say this into a mirror 5 times and then crazy shit happens. That I already knew of, and that I don't know anybody who didn't try that. I don't know any of your friends who are like, dude, let's go do it right now. Let's go do it. And then one friend would be like, you ever done it into a toilet? It would be on everybody's lips, and you would try and test it out yourself. So I think the urban legend I knew, but the crime itself, the backstory, and the movie, I think I saw the movie once, but didn't really register with me. So the legend itself, which is a big part of this movie anyway, that's what carried on for me anyway, was the urban legend portion of it, which is arguably maybe the best part of any scary story. The fact that you may think it's true, you may not think it's true, but somebody told you it this way, somebody told you it that way, and it makes it extra scary. Somebody has an uncle who really did it. So I think the legend of it plays a big part of it. I have some thoughts on that when we do the movie review.
Like, I mean, you're right. Like, it's a direct plagiarism of Bloody Mary. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so like, I know, like, everybody knows Bloody Mary, right? That's like the one that everyone does as kids. But Candyman, you're right, is the exact same thing, just with Candyman, you know? Yeah. So it kind of puts the thought in your head. You're like, well, maybe I've just been saying the wrong word this whole time, you know? Like, we've all tried Bloody Mary before and nothing happened, you know? But Candyman is like, it's a new reveal. You're like, oh, maybe the Candyman one could be true, you know? I never, ever heard anyone talking about the Candyman urban legend growing up. Like, it was straight 100% Bloody Mary, you know? So I kind of like how they do that. You know, it's like Ghostbusters with the all women cast, you know? It's like the same thing. You just they mixed it up a little bit.
Let's start with the origin of the name Candyman. Did some research on it. I never heard of this crime. Was not aware of it at all. And in doing the research on it, a pretty horrific story. Here's what I found out. Dean Corll was an American serial killer who abducted, raped, and tortured, murdered at least 28 teenage boys between 1970 and 1973 in Texas. He was aided by 2 teenage accomplices. The crimes, which became known as the Houston mass murders, came to light after Helen, one of his accomplices, fatally shot Corll. Upon discovery, it was considered the worst example of a serial murder in U.S. history. So already a horrific crime that I had no idea what was going on. The name Candyman, Corll was also known as the Candyman and the Pied Piper because he and his family had previously owned and operated a candy factory in Houston Heights, and he had been known to give free candy to local children. So that's where Candyman actually comes from, is he lured kids in with free candy because he worked at a candy store. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with the movie at all, but the name is sinister. It's innocent. It has to do with probably our biggest fear is harming children. And then we had this pariah who was kidnapping teenagers in the 70s, which arguably maybe the scariest decade. I feel like the 70s, anything went. I feel like there was no law enforcement. A van was all you needed to kidnap someone.
Yeah, I'm glad that the scriptwriter for Candyman didn't go this route with the story of just some guy kidnapping kids in his van and then molesting and killing them. Candyman, I love the connection that the movie makes to Candyman when they talk about how they killed the slave back in the day, where he was accused of having, like, you know, a cross racial relationship with a daughter of one of the guys, and then she got pregnant, and of course, like, when they found out that she got pregnant by, you know, this black guy, they decided to, like, murder him in the most horrific way, you know? So you're kind of like listening to this and you're like, okay, where does the Candyman part come in, you know? And then you later on discover that, like, after they've cut his hand off and, like, beat him up, like, they take the honey from a beehive and, like, rub it all over him, causing the bees to, like, get really pissed off and then, like, sting him to death. But, like, the Candyman aspect being, like, the sugar coating, you know, that he received leading up to his death, you know? When I heard that, I was like, whoa, that's fucked up, you know? That was, like, that's a leap that I understand, and, like, that's really disturbing to picture, you know?
Did you know of the Candyman crimes by this name beforehand? Because I sure didn't.
You know, I've heard that one before. I've also heard other crimes of, like, Halloween candy poisoning there too.
That's another great urban legend-ish type of story too, with the poisoning of the candy.
Or the razor
in the candies. Yeah, was always, we all grew up knowing don't take any candy that's out of a wrapper.
Right. Yeah. And then it was always like, you know, once the sun goes down, let's bring it in, you know,
Yeah.
Let's not stay out too late. There was always the few kids that would like knock on your door like after 9:30 p.m. And that was always like a different experience. It was always like, okay, time to go home. I don't I don't want to answer this door for strangers all night, you know?
Halloween should end, yeah, like about 8:15 p.m.
And it's for little kids too.
Should be for little kids.
There were some teenagers who would like trick or treat, and it was like, okay, this you're outgrowing this. Let's get out of here. Yeah, this is a little kids activity. Oh,
Let's talk the second true crime that adds to this movie, which is the coming through the apartment wall crime, which is pretty interesting. In 1987, a murder occurred in Chicago in an apartment of Ruthie Mae McCoy. She lived in a public housing building, and there was no wall connecting the two medicine cabinets, apparently. And that's how these two people broke in, came through the medicine cabinet, hence saying Candyman into a mirror. And they murdered her. They robbed her. Of course, it being in a housing project, police response was slow, although not initially slow. In the report I read, they came, but they just couldn't get in, and they left. So
right.
they're like, all done here. And then after a neighbor calls reporting that she hadn't seen her neighbor in a day, they go and they drill out the door and find out that she's murdered. And that's where this Candyman through the wall comes from. So second true crime in the making of this story, which sounds like the crime that you were told about living in Chicago.
Right. Yeah, that's a crazy story. The Ruthie Mae McCoy story. I was learning about it too, and the thing that I was interested in wasn't like you said, the response time isn't bad. You know, the first 911 call goes in at 8:45 p.m. That's when Ruthie says someone's breaking into my apartment, and I think the police arrived by 9:08 or something like that.
Yeah, I read it was within 10 minutes.
It's definitely like not the slowest response. You know, all things considered, like they did get there more or less quickly. Like even though the damage can be done in 3 seconds, you know, when it comes to a gunshot, like they got there quickly, but then they just weren't thorough at all. You know, they were like, the door's locked. She's not responding. We're just going to go home. And that aspect of it is like, why even go? You know, if you're just going to not, like, if she's dead, of course she's not going to answer the door. You know, like this is the opposite of what you should be doing for this problem, you know? So like you said, they leave and then they come back the next night because the neighbors are like, okay, so we still haven't solved the problem. Like she called 911. We heard gunshots and screaming, and now she doesn't answer her door. So maybe we should go inside. So the police come a second night and they're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Let's break the door down. And everyone's like, for sure. And then, dude, there's another council. It's like the Chicago Housing Authority came and intervened and was like, no, you can't break the door down. Like, you need to bring in a locksmith to drill out the lock. Because if you break our door, that's like, we're going to have to repair the door. So they wait another night after that to bring in the locksmith. And then the locksmith drills open the lock. So 72 full hours after this has happened, then they find her body. And the sad thing is that she shot 4 times. Okay. But each shot is in a non-lethal area. She shot once in the right arm. She shot once in the thigh, once in the side of her abdomen, and then once in her, I believe, leg or something like that. So it's likely that after she was shot, if they had just gotten to her within maybe a few hours, she could have been saved, you know? But instead, the 72-hour waiting period where they couldn't figure out how to get into her apartment likely is what killed her, you know? So it's a really sad story. They care more about breaking down a door than they care about finding out if someone was shot, you know? That was the sad thing about it, I thought, you know?
The scariest part about that crime to me is that sometimes the scariest place isn't in the woods, isn't in a haunted house. It isn't a cemetery. It's your own apartment. It's your own dwelling. And that's what's super scary about this to me is like you're in need of help and no one can get to you.
Right. As it goes with the projects, I think like the crime rate in the projects is like I think 38 per 1,000 people get engaged in violent crime like a year or something like that. So it's insane, like it's not like this was the only crime that happened that year in the projects. There were daily crimes happening. One of the things I was reading about, just like the building that she was in, one of the really horrific things about it is that when they make those like low income buildings today, they make it a point to put slits throughout the building. That way natural light can flow in, so even in the event that the electricity goes out or the bulbs get broken or stolen, there's still a way to like have light in the building and you can see in the stairwell. But for this building that Ruthie was in, it's called the Abbott building. There were no light slits. So they said that entire sections of the stairwell would just be pitch black, and the janitor was supposed to put in a light bulb, but as soon as the janitor would put one in, it would either be stolen or someone would break it, So it truly sounds like a horrific building to be in, And the ironic thing about the movie is that in Candyman, they say that she lives they say that like the murder happened in the projects of Cabrini Green, which is a real location in Chicago with a high crime rate. But actually, the location that Ruthie was living in was actually even more dangerous than Cabrini Green. Cabrini Green had an average of, I think, 32 violent crimes per 1,000 people, and the Abbott building was 47 per 1,000 people. So they even undercut the fictional danger compared to the real life one. So
yeah,
really interesting, I thought, and genuinely horrifying too, living in that building. Can you imagine going up the stairs in complete darkness every day just to get to your apartment?
yeah.
They say you would hear drug deals going on in the dark. You would hear people just moving around and you couldn't see them, So truly horrifying. I can't imagine having to experience that.
The idea of a scary, haunted, violent, crime-riddled apartment complex, I don't think is fully understood. Like, we all know scary settings like a cemetery or a haunted house, or even the original Candyman, 1970s Texas. I think open space, Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of setting, that's super scary. But to have an apartment building that is so full of violence and knowing there's really nowhere to go is really creepy and really scary on just a totally different level, because it has this urban element to it, in the sense like this was built for initially a reason to help people, yet this is the scariest place on earth. So as far as a scary setting, the apartment complex, I think, just works on you on a different psychological level. What do you think some of the best scary settings are? Because right at the top of my head, I think space could be a super scary setting because you really have nowhere to go. I'm thinking like the movie Alien and stuff like that, Event Horizon. Scary. Give me space as a scary setting.
Anytime you can build that sense of like claustrophobia or like tight corridors or like, the inability to just sprint in the opposite direction of the threat, that's always more scary. Think about, okay, like you said, the one exception is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because there is a lot of open world running in that movie. But most other horror movies do just kind of limit the amount of space you have. Like you've got Alien, spaceship, nowhere to go there. You've got Jaws on a boat, you're pretty limited.
The sea is scary.
Yeah,
that's a good one too.
Like if you jump in the ocean, you can't do anything, like you're just paddling. So there's no ability to sprint there. And then the boat is obviously limiting. And then the classic like haunted house stories are all about like just being in a hallway or a corridor or something, So yeah, if you don't have space, it's a genuinely horrifying idea. And the projects are like the perfect example of that in like another setting,
Yeah, I think you hit it. The notion of having space plays on our fear nature. The fact of having nowhere to go, space, the ocean, and then throw in there underwater.
Right.
Like if you're in a submarine or something like that, like in the movie Abyss, that's scary too because you're
Yeah.
underwater. You cannot go outside these four walls. It's
Right.
scary as well. And in the scary apartment building that's your own home. I mean, think if you had to come home to something every day and you just didn't know what you were going to see and you had to sleep there that night. That would be terrifying.
Totally. Right. Think like the concept of like you get to stay in this apartment, but it also has like a gaping hole in it. So at any point, if somebody wants to come in, they can't. You can't really
Yeah.
lock your door. It's a terrifying concept to think about. I think it's definitely something that they explore well in the movie Candyman because they do touch on like the projects and like a lot of it is granted it's a very 90s movie. Like they do capture the tightness of the space really well, I think. And especially in comparison to the openness of the space outside of the projects. I think it's a good they tap into the things we're talking about, which is anxiety that you get from not being able to run or not being able to get away from someone who's threatening you.
Let's talk the movie. 1992, some history on the movie itself. Candyman 1992 is an American Gothic supernatural horror film written and directed by Bernard Rose based on Clive Barker's short story The Forbidden. The film follows a Chicago graduate student completing a thesis on urban legends and folklore, which leads her to the legend of Candyman, the ghost of an artist and the son of a slave who was murdered in the late 19th century for his relationship with the daughter of a wealthy white man. The film came to be after a chance meeting between Rose and Barker, who recently completed his own film adaptation of Nightbreed. Rose expressed interest in Barker's story, The Forbidden, and the class system in contemporary Liverpool. Rose chose to refit the story to Cabrini Green's public housing development in Chicago and instead focus on themes of race and social class in the inner city United States. And finally released on October 16, 1992, the film received generally positive reviews and grossed over $25 million in the U.S., where it is regarded in some critical circles as contemporary classic of horror cinema. It was followed by 2 sequels as well, and the final sequel was released just in 2021. And final note, Cabrini Green was demolished, the building itself, the real building, in 2011. So, yeah, it was taken down. And this movie is, I guess this is a classic. I never regarded it as a classic movie, but it's one of those movies that I think everybody knew and maybe everybody did not necessarily know of. But I remember this movie from the preview. It had a spooky preview where the guy and the girl are basically laying out the entire premise in the preview, which I love when previews just hit you with, this is what this movie's about, let's go. And it's the girl and the guy getting it on, and then she's like, if you say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, someone comes out and kills you, and you're just like, I'm in, let's go with this movie, what's happening, let's do it. So that's the setup to Candyman. Quick note that I found out, who is it? Clive Barker, who wrote The Forbidden, also wrote Hellraiser as well. So, horror story author extraordinaire wrote The Forbidden, turns into Candyman, and wrote Hellraiser, another weird 80s horror movie. So, deep research. Barker's short story, set in his native Liverpool, was about segregation and culture of the poor urban areas. For Candyman, Rose was shocked by Chicago's dynamic architecture and large amount of prejudice that he decided to change the Liverpool location to Chicago. Rose scouted locations in Chicago and found Cabrini Green, a housing project. For its poor construction, violence, and high robbery rates, the project was also located in between high-class neighborhoods, meaning the character of Helen could feel Cabrini Green's chaos from a safe apartment not too far away. So the setting is interesting, that it went from Liverpool to Chicago, and I think later when we talk about best parts of the movie, I think they set up Chicago in a way that isn't really depicted in movies before. We don't see any real good parts about it. We just see scary parts of it. Scary urban sprawl another theme of scary settings that we don't necessarily think about.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the opening of Candyman, the movie, where I don't know if you remember this, but it's like the camera is tracking from right to left on the expressway. And it's like, it's literally taking you to the south side of Chicago, you know?
Mm.
It makes the assumption that if you're watching this movie, you probably don't live in the projects, you know? So it's like, okay, let's take you to the projects. I thought, like, the more I think about it, the more artistically done that movie is, you know?
That opening scene alone of the camera looking straight down onto the streets, and then you said it, it's going right to left, and it's taking you. You don't want to go. It takes you, and
Right.
you're just seeing concrete and roads and cars, and you're seeing a gray sky. It is really compelling from the start, and in the narration, of course, just sets the mood that it is scary. There's scary shit going on here in the city.
I know it doesn't age very well, but there is like that, exactly like we're talking about, this sense of like, I don't know, how slum tourism, you know, kind of this idea of like, you go into this horrible place and like you learn a scary story, you know, and like you do kind of, you are looking at this through the main character's eyes, you know, at least for me, you know, someone who didn't grow up in the projects, you know, like I'm essentially in her shoes when she's going through all of this, you know, so she's living in the area. Like, you know, we've all seen these terrible neighborhoods and stuff like that, you know, but like, just like her, she's never actually gone into the apartments or anything like that, you know, so the experience of like, being, you know, being a character in that movie, I feel like is not a big leap of the imagination for me to go from me to you know, the graduate student who's trying to write a paper. You know, it was a real easy connection with the protagonist for me. You know.
Oh,
So
I see. Yeah,
I
that's a
really
good point.
enjoyed it. Yeah, I really thought it was easy to get into it because of that aspect too. You know.
I hate, but I also love when horror movies do the POV camera. Like you're the person and it's walking through the hallways. I hate it. It's the most effective, scary way because like the camera's going here, you are the person. You don't want to go there, but the camera's going there anyway. They should just do that in every movie. Just do it in every movie. I don't even care.
What did you make of, I mean, I hope maybe you'll bring this up later, but what did you make of like her relationship with her husband? Like,
I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on Trevor. Trevor, the husband of Helen. I got a couple notes on deep research before we go to the categories. Rose's screenplay garnered a huge amount of attention in casting agencies, and Virginia Madsen, the lead actress, and Tony Todd, the Candyman, instantly tried to get parts to have a chance to work with the filmmaker. Eddie Murphy was the original choice for Candyman, but filmmakers could not afford him. Todd, who was fit for playing the character, as he was 6'5" and physically fit, recalled that there was skepticism from his colleagues about him playing the Candyman due to the number of bee-sting injuries that he would have to receive. He persisted as he wanted to work with the director and said he always wanted to find his personal Phantom of the Opera. While Candyman's background is unknown in the original story, Todd came up with the backstory for his character on his own. Producer Alan Poole was partial to Sandra Bullock for the role of Helen. In plain clothes, with law enforcement by their side, Todd and Madsen actually went to the buildings of Cabrini Green for research. For playing Candyman, Todd tried to act as a primeval boogeyman without overacting the part, which he admitted was difficult. He worked with Bob Keane on the Candyman's look. Keane first had Todd wear a machine-controlled fake right arm, but found the movements of his arm too strict. Then Keane came up with the idea of having Todd wear a hook to indicate the Candyman's supernatural being. He spent 3 hours making the hook. Todd suggested the character wear an eye patch, but Keane rejected that idea. And finally, the same team who worked on Backdraft was designated to set the bonfire scene of Candyman. Todd negotiated a bonus of $1,000 for each bee sting he would receive during the filming, and he received 23 total bee stings. So Todd, the lead actor, made 23,000 extra bucks for this movie.
Good for Todd. You should always negotiate a good contract, whether you're acting or teaching or writing, whatever, it's always worth just being like, this contract's good, but we can do better,
Back to the bees. I still don't know what the hell the bees really had to do with this whole thing. So if they could have got out of $23,000, or Todd just saw a way to really capitalize on getting stung by a whole shitload of bees.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I think the thinking is that like, we can't get rid of the bees because that gives us the Candyman connection, with the whole like sugar and like honey and stuff like that. So Todd, being a very shrewd businessman, probably tapped into that and was like, what bees also offer is a fucking workplace liability. I'm going to need some cash for every sting. So yeah, good for Todd. That's really good of him.
Good for Todd.
It's funny that you said that they wanted to get Eddie Murphy to play Candyman, because two things on that. One, I would love an alternate universe where Eddie Murphy is the Candyman, and just see that, it'd be a little goofier, just to see that take, I think would be really good. And then also, do you remember that Eddie Murphy was in that movie Vampire in Brooklyn or something?
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw some version of it. It would be a little more comical, but you're right. So Eddie Murphy maybe wanted to do some scary stuff, but this movie could nowhere near come to afford Eddie Murphy.
I think it's a good pass. I think it's good that they passed.
It's a good pass. Yeah.
It would be a distraction. He wouldn't be the Candyman. It would be Eddie Murphy, but I do like that he still had his way with Hollywood and still got to be a vampire, just in a different movie. I think he might have directed it too. He might have just taken the reins and been like, I'll just make my own vampire movie.
Can you imagine a world where Candyman stars Eddie Murphy and Sandra Bullock? I so want to see it. Sometimes horror movies do best when they're unknown actors and actresses, of course, but it doesn't mean I still don't want to see Candyman with Eddie Murphy and Sandra Bullock. Make it like a rom-com.
Like Sandra Bullock, but that's not her role. That's not a role for Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, I don't know if she's done scary very often. Bird Box was kind of scary.
Bird Box was okay.
She was in the net. That was scary. That was about the people on the internet trying to kill her. Early 90s.
With Gosling. She's in that movie with Gosling called, I think, Murder by Numbers. And she does she plays a good character in any role, I think. But you know what is the actress or the actor that plays the character in Candyman? It's Laura Madden.
Virginia Madsen is the lead actress.
Virginia Madsen. You know what I like about her is that she kind of taps into the X-Files Scully character a little bit.
Oh, you took the thought right out of my head. Yeah.
She's got a procedural quality to her that I think Sandra Bullock kind of doesn't do as well. Sandra Bullock's a little more goofy adolescent style, and I liked Virginia Madsen's very like academic approach to it. I thought she's a good pick for that role, I think.
One sort of thought I had like reviewing this movie, the relationship of the lead Helen and the Candyman is like, has this like chemistry to it. And it's almost like they have this like weird romance as well. Is this the first edition ever to a horror movie romantic comedy? I don't know. It was very odd. This relationship, but they do have chemistry. The two lead characters, the Candyman and Helen. Okay, what do you think Candyman's Rotten Tomatoes score is?
I don't know. I would give it a 63.
Candyman on Rotten Tomatoes is 77%. I think that's a little high, but very favorable. Rotten Tomatoes has Candyman at 77%. The site's critics' consensus reads, though it ultimately sacrifices some mystery in the name of gory thrills, Candyman is nuanced, effectively chilling, and takes that benefits form of interesting premise and some fine performances. So, wishy-washy review on it. Okay, Roger Ebert wrote of Candyman, elements of the plot may not hold up in the clear light of day, but that didn't bother me much. What I liked was a horror movie that was scaring me with ideas of gore instead of simply with gore. Interesting, like thought. Ideas of gore are more scary than actual gore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
like that one critic that wrote some good performances.
yeah.
Like, okay, so who? Like maybe he didn't like mine, maybe he did like mine. He only said some good performances. It does do a good job. But it also does give you gore too, because he literally opens his chest,
Right. We have
like,
the gory chest beat in the rib
yeah,
cage.
it doesn't it appeals to both the kind of implication of what it might look like, and then it does kind of reveal the shark to you at the very end, and just show you his hollow chest.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that too. The other gory part that we have to address too is the whole sub story of the kid who gets his balls ripped off by the hook. That, in my opinion, was the most chilling scene, when the little boy is telling that story, and then it just cuts into like the pan shot of the boy like in the bloody bathroom, and then like you
Oh
put
yeah.
together that like a hook ripped out his penis or whatever. I thought that part was so gory and like disturbing, but you're right. At the same time, it doesn't show you the wound or anything. It's just a very distant shot on a boy holding himself with blood everywhere. I thought that was a terrible and gory moment in that
Yeah.
movie as well. Yeah.
This film's approach to gore is unique. It's gory, but it doesn't look fully real, and you don't see the gore. Like, you don't see the actual violence. Like, you don't see anybody really getting slashed. You see the aftermath of it. So it has a weird approach to gore as well that I think is still scary, because I always think the scariest monster, the scariest piece of violence is always the one in your own head. So when they don't show it, you will find whatever's scariest to you. Like, a good example of this is Predator. Like, you don't see the Predator until 3/4 of the way into the movie, and you're effectively scaring yourself the whole time, because you're like, what's he look like? I don't know. They shot a whole forest. They didn't get him. The Predator's out there. It could be huge, could be small. We don't even know. Here's one negative review. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times called the film Clive Barker's worst to date, an ambitious but pretentious film that quickly becomes as resplendent as it is preposterous.
Of course, it's a horror movie about a guy with a hook who comes through a mirror.
You know what?
About that? Yeah.
You know what else was always was grossing me out is his hook hand was like bloody and stuff, and it got on his sleeve of his coat, and it was like dry blood there, and his coat was all fuzzy. That grossed me out. I didn't like that one bit. That added to the gore. One final review. Eric Henderson from Slant Magazine positively received the lead actor, played by Tony Todd, saying that the Candyman is svelte, a sexual monument, far removed from the silent brutality of your average serial slasher. So it seems like maybe Tony Todd achieved that Phantom of the Opera he was looking for.
I love that sexual monument quote.
Right. That's what stood out to me. I was like, what?
Yeah, he is sexy. I would think of the Candyman as kind of a black Dracula. He's got the ability to hypnotize people. He's got that deep voice that kind of echoes in from the back of your head. And of course, there's the threat of a sharp object, only instead of teeth, it's like the physical hooking.
Yeah.
It is kind of, he's very charismatic to me.
Yeah, I think that's the better word. The sexual part grosses me out. when you're like, Candyman's got to get some.
He's like trying to take that angle, but at the end of the day, I think Candyman probably just turned this writer on a little bit,
Right.
Because I get more of like a hypnosis, like Dracula vibe. I didn't see him as like a sex symbol or anything like that. The one note on the hook that I think is just a great detail is that, first of all, just like there's something so charming about the 90s quality of one arm with the hook being way longer than his other arm, you know, just like the physics, like you're like, yeah, we know what's going on there. And
we
then,
hadn't figured that out in 1992 yet.
right. It still had to do with the 6-inch differential when anybody has a hook, you know? But the thing that I thought is such a good detail is that you see the hook and then you're kind of wondering like how it's held in. And then you just see a nail like going into the hook, you know?
Oh, I didn't
like,
see that.
Very DIY style of keeping a hook in somebody's fleshy stump, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the makeup and the effects are so good. I'll always take that kind of cheesy like, you know, goofy makeup versus some CGI, you know? That look, you knew it was real. The arm is literally 6 inches longer than his other arm, you know, there's no doubt. So I thought that aspect of it was good, even though it does obviously look pretty fake too.
I also like that in a movie that is where the lead monster, the scary guy, the whatever is, you know, you summon him by saying his name in a mirror. He's like in your head psychologically. He will appear. You never know where. How does he kill you? Oh, with a hook. That's it. He just stabs you with a hook. That's about that. That's how he does it. So
that's true. He does have a very rudimentary style of killing, considering
yes,
like the academic approach to everything. You
and
know,
that becomes my ultimate criticism of the movie is like it at the end of the day, it's black and white. He just kills people. Like there's not a real reason to why other than they say his name. I had to dig deep and find out that he doesn't like that his name's being besmirched at Cabrini Green, so now he has to go kill people for spite.
Don't you think that like he hypnotized her to kill some people too?
Yeah.
Like, there's that whole aspect where she wakes up like 4 times, like with the murder weapon, and like in her head, Candyman did it, but actually you're kind of wondering, like, you know, maybe she did it, you know? Maybe he uses her as like a puppet to do his deeds, you know, and like in her head he's like gaslighting her, like she thinks it's him doing it, but actually she's the one doing it.
Yeah, I didn't fully get that.
Show her killing anybody, of course, until the very end when she's like the new Candy Woman or whatever. But I feel like the movie kind of wants to tease you a little bit with that idea of like who's actually doing the killing here, you know?
Oh, I didn't get that. I thought he was like framing her for these killings, and then I didn't know.
It could be that too. Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna frame you for killing your psych ward doctor, and then I'm gonna jump out this window, which might be one of the funnest scenes is he gets pulled out of a window.
Because remember, they've got that key surveillance video evidence where like she sees him hovering over her. And then like, she's like, he's under the bed. And then later on, they show her the camera shot and like, she's just jumping up and down on the bed, you know, they're like, it kind of makes you wonder like, okay, this is all going on in her head. Maybe she just gets a knife and just starts killing people, you know, and like, she just thinks the Candyman's making her do it, you know, or the Candyman is doing it. That's what she thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of things I didn't fully understand or felt like the logic was adding up in this movie. In the sense of like, is this a movie about this lady's psychology? Is this a movie about the urban legend? Is the Candyman even real? What the hell is going on here?
I mean, the thing that fascinated me too is like just the idea of her thesis, you know?
Yes.
It's like, I wanted to know more about it, you know? One, like the professor announces to her that I've already written this paper, essentially upending all of the work she was doing, you know? So that's like a little unfortunate, but I would just like to know, like, what was the interaction she was having with other professors about this, you know? Like, did anybody say to her, there's a guy who's already done this in this department, like, you should do something else, you know? It was such a goofy, like, oh, that's okay, I guess we're just never going to talk about the thesis again, you know? Like, that I really dislike that aspect of it. Like they kind of just drop that thread and then you never get that again. Which is, I guess, very college, you know, she gave it the old college try, you know.
There were some holes in Helen's approach to this thesis as well. I was like, all right, scrap that. I'm gonna do a new thesis on a shark that's in a lake and eats people. Like, Helen, that was Jaws. Damn it. Damn it. All right, I'm going to do one on a massive gorilla that lives in the jungle. Like, that was King Kong, Helen.
Yeah. It was
all right, I'm out of ideas. I drop out of this school. Okay, timing, 1992. I'm going to throw some movies at you that came out in 1992 for some context. 1992 movies, The Crying Game, A Few Good Men came out, Batman Returns came out, The Mighty Ducks, Last of the Mohicans, and Basic Instinct. I have a thought about that later. Best Picture in 1992, Unforgiven. Best Director, Clint Eastwood. Best Actor for 1992, Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. Best Actress, Emma Thompson for Howard's End. I never saw it. Super Bowl champions in 1992 were the Washington Redskins, and NBA champions were the Chicago Bulls, winning their second in a row NBA championship. So 1992 overall had a lot going on with it. We're right in that genre of a different sort of thriller too. Basic Instinct, kind of this psychological thrillers are starting to come to be. Silence of the Lambs is in this era as well. Jade, a super fucked up weird movie with David Caruso, is in this. And then The X-Files is coming on TV as well. So Candyman maybe, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time, but it had its finger on the pulse of what we might have been into in the next coming years.
I totally agree with that. Like, Candyman really, in a weird way, like in 92, we're right on the verge of grunge, right? Like the hair metal's kind of dying out, but we still like rock, but it's like, what is rock to us
still
now?
A lot of pop, still a lot of singer-songwriter. Yep.
Grunge becomes like a thing, like basically after 94, like it exploded, but 92 is kind of like the volcano starting to give off a little smoke. And Candyman is kind of a grungy movie. Like, I like the aspect of like the shit being smeared all over the walls, like when she goes into the bathroom, and like just kind of that like that decor of like disgusting, it's very much not a haunted castle with like huge ceilings and like chandeliers. The kind of horror that Candyman does is like dirty little like makes you gag horror, so I do like how it's kind of aligned with the culture in that way a little bit, where it knew that we were kind of ready to go the grunge route, and Candyman kind of gives you visual grunge in a way, which is a cool take on Dracula. It's like a grungy Dracula. Which
Eddie Murphy could have been Candyman. You're talking me back into Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy would have done a perfectly serviceable role as the Candyman. I feel like, it would have been different, but his eyes would have definitely brought you in too, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just nervous. I don't think it would have been as good, but it would definitely be worth seeing, I think.
Cultural impact. There was controversy that the film was depicting racism and social stereotypes. According to Rose, I had to go and have a whole set of meetings with the NAACP because the producers were so worried. And what they said to me, they read the script and said, why are we even having this meeting? This is just good fun. This is the NAACP saying this. Like, it shows you how much we've flipped from 92 to now. The NAACP was like, we're good. Their argument was, why shouldn't a black actor be a ghost? Why shouldn't a black actor play Freddy Krueger or Hannibal Lecter? If you're saying that, they can't be, that's really perverse. This is a horror movie. At the time of the film's release, lead actress Virginia Madsen said, I was and am now worried about how people will respond. I don't think Spike Lee will like this film. And lastly, as a cultural impact, after seeing this movie, thousands upon millions of kids went straight to the mirror and said Candyman into it.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot going on with Candyman. Add a few notes from my viewing of Candyman. Number one, the lead actress is just a Sharon Stone lookalike. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, did Basic Instinct come out before or after this? Because I think this actress was essentially playing Sharon Stone from that Basic Instinct movie. There's this little love angle with her out of touch professor boyfriend. She's got the Sharon Stone hair, and she's like a lady in charge. I was like, this could have been Sharon Stone. And then my favorite detail, it's her husband, Trevor, is Todd from Terminator 2.
He plays that's a character actor right there. That guy does excellent deadbeat boyfriend, deadbeat husband, deadbeat Secret Service agent. He does it all. He's really good. I love that actor.
Number one.
The other movie he's in, I was watching Taken the other day with Liam Neeson. And
he's in that?
That same actor is Liam Neeson's ex-wife's new husband, and he still plays the role. He's kind of like a douchey, like, husband who hates Liam Neeson, but like gets along with him a little bit. He nails it. He's a great actor. I love that guy. I need to look him up and find more movies with him, because I love the way he puts that like kind of scummy spin on all of his characters, where like, he's a jerk, but at the same time, like, his hair's slicked back and he wears the jeans, and
he's got the cardigan. He's the professor.
Lines, he is kind of a smooth guy. There's that scene where she walks into his class and the girl he's having an affair with is just obviously like flirting with him, like at the end of class, and she asks him, not his wife asks him, Virginia Madsen's character asks him like what's going on between you two? And then he says, without even missing a beat, he's like, I'm her handsome professor. Obviously, she's madly in love with me. And then he just laughs and walks out of the classroom. And it's like, that's not going to do it. Like, what's actually going on here? But, the scene cuts, and then you just go to a new part. And you're like, yep, we can kind of imagine what it's like to be married to this guy.
I wrote it in my notes. I love Trevor's cheat game. He just has no shame whatsoever. He's going to just address the obvious. And also, he's out kicking his coverage big time. His wife is way more attractive than what he should be getting. He's this like bald professor, this skinny white dude, and yet he's like bothered by her. So I love the trope of the out of touch husband who's just not into the wife. He just wants to get some tail from somewhere else. And whatever she does, he's kind of like, whatever, I'm busy. I'm going to be out. I'm going to be home late. You know that. Like, or when she calls him, she's like, why didn't you answer the phone? Oh, I was asleep. He just doesn't even try to think of an excuse.
I like how at that point, like, if you had any doubt that Trevor wasn't having an affair, like, they just show you a shot of the phone ringing with like the empty bed. And you're like, okay, now we know for sure he's having an affair. Like, even if you're giving him the benefit of the doubt the whole time, it makes it pretty clear right there that he was having the big old affair. So yeah, he's a dirtbag. He's also a plot device too, where like he does get his at the end, and you're kind of like, the revenge quality of the horror movie is kind of satisfied right there too, Yeah,
that's true. He gets a
insight into his psychology where he like almost regrets everything that he did, He's like crying into the mirror and I guess accidentally says her name 5 times into the mirror.
Right, he says it accidentally. That's how he gets killed.
Murdered. But I mean, I don't know if it's redeeming necessarily, but it at least shows that he has a conscience, because he does seem to feel bad about everything that happened. The classic part where he moves on from the next girl too, he's already annoyed by his new girlfriend. So like,
she painted the walls wrong.
Like, that's who Trevor is. Like, it's just always one to the other for Trevor,
Right. Yeah. He's like, the semester, we got a new semester coming up. I think I'll find someone with glasses this semester. Trevor, he gets the cool death scene, but he got the cool death scene in Terminator 2 also. So, my thought on how we should elect a movie president every 4 years. Every 4 years, we have an election for president, but I say we do that for movies. And we elect someone to be our president, and they're the president in every single movie that has a president for 4 years. So for Trevor, or for Todd from Terminator 2, I say we elect him as the deadbeat husband, stepdad, creepy uncle, and he should be that for every single movie.
If the year was 1991, I would say that's a great idea.
Yeah, he did it in this movie and Terminator 2.
And weirdly, like in Taken, he plays a distinguished deadbeat dad. It's really
Mm.
bizarre.
I could have gone with a few more scenes of Trevor. Also, this movie, I love the strategy of movies when the characters are investigating an urban legend. That always works for me. I'm always all in as
Oh,
they're essentially
oh,
investigating and finding stuff out. This is a great smoking movie. Everybody's smoking in this movie. I love that. I love a burning cigarette while they're like holding a pen or they're at the dinner party or whatever. So good smoking movie as well.
about that scene where she's like unsure if she's losing her mind. Like if she's had a few visions, but none of it is like concrete yet, and she's all stressed out. And then she just goes to the fridge and pulls out a Budweiser and then cracks a bud and lights a cigarette. Like that scene was like such a satisfying product placement, and then just like like you're saying, like just a call back to that time where like you could have characters smoking in movies all the time.
Yeah.
You don't really see that anymore, except for like movies about the 60s, but modern movies now don't have regular smoking.
No,
Oh,
smoking is totally gone. I think there's even like a warning when it says like warning. This movie has depictions of violence,
yeah,
adult themes, and smoking.
right.
It's
I
it's
mean, it's
really
it's so
odd how
funny though,
far we've
because
come in
everybody
smoking.
still smokes. Like every gas station you go to is still loaded with cigarettes. You know, it's just they don't like broadcast it anymore. You don't really see it being actively done by like famous people on camera anymore. It's
Yeah.
good of them, honestly. Less people should smoke.
The other aspect that we don't see anymore, I love this strategy in a movie. When the characters are taking pictures of stuff, they're taking pictures of the crime scene with the camera, and then they go develop the film later. And then they see something in the film they didn't notice. I always love that. I love that in this movie. Young people will never fully understand what it's like to develop film and see some creepy shit that you didn't think you were taking a picture of. I love that. I love Jake, the little kid. Good child acting. It could have gone terribly wrong with the wrong child actor. Jake, the little kid, is excellent in there. I don't know where Jake's parents are in this entire movie. And the alternate universe stuff, where did you stand on that? Where all of a sudden you go into Candyman's lair? Was that in the apartment building? Was that an alternate universe? That confused me.
Yeah.
That never really
So,
works for me.
a couple things on what you just said. The whole photograph thing is interesting to me as well because like that's her big break in her thesis. Like once she realizes that she has a picture of Candyman in the background, like okay, now she has a novel thesis in the sense that like she has more evidence than the last person who wrote the thesis paper. So that's the moment where you're like, nice, like that dickhead professor who was making fun of her at the fancy dinner is like going to get his, like, so, okay, she's got the photos in the box, and then remember there's that scene where she's like giddily walking to her car, knowing that like now she's got a thesis, and that's when Candyman appears to her and starts to fully fuck with her. Like from that moment on,
Yeah, she goes nuts after
head,
that.
So so that's where the logic doesn't totally click with me because wouldn't Candyman be thrilled that this is about to happen? Because then like everybody
Right.
would know that Candyman is real, and like he actually is a threat and like his name would live on forever, but instead he sabotages her and like makes it her fault that people start getting murdered and stuff. I just don't understand what he wants. I don't know what
Yeah.
Candyman's end game is here,
I don't
because
know either. I
it's
don't know either. He
great,
he
you know.
derails it, and we don't ultimately know what Candyman's deal is. Like you want to just
Maybe he doesn't want to be proven to be real. Maybe he wants to eternally live in the world of an urban legend. I don't know. I got a little confused there. And then the other thing is that everything Candyman says is like essentially nonsense. Like is he speaks in like a very flowery way, and like it's very beautiful to listen to that deep baritone voice, but he doesn't say a single thing of worth. You know, like he doesn't explain anything about himself. Essentially, he just like
Right.
he's always inviting Helen, you know, to like be with him, but I don't know what he wants. Like it's a very vague character, and then his motives are so vague, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to Helen's thesis. You know,
That was the
so,
problem I had with it too. It feels like we could have made a movie out of 4 different storylines in
yeah,
this movie, and they all get
right,
stuffed together. It would have been great if the story was Helen investigating this urban legend and her trying to get the thesis
right,
looked at, and her researching it and finding out little more pieces of evidence as it goes. Instead, the Candyman is confusing. And then Candyman makes this deal with her that says, like, I got to kill you when he kidnaps the baby. I got to kill you, and then I'll give the baby back. And then he just goes back on the deal. He's like, nah, I want to try to kill everybody. I was like, well, Candyman, what's your deal, dude?
right.
Go think this stuff before you offer these crazy deals to us. And then the other storyline is just give me a storyline with Trevor and his philanderings. I just want that.
Yeah.
Like, I love the scene when Helen comes back from the psych ward and Trevor has on a robe and the new girlfriend is painting the wall.
He's such a dumbass too, because she screams, and from the other room he says, "What's the matter, baby? Did you make another boo-boo?" And he walks in and sees his fucking ex-wife there, and he's like, "Oh shit!" Like Trevor had fully moved on. In his mind, she was just gonna be in the mental asylum forever, and like he would deal with that in like 5 years, maybe, you know, but like he was not going to visit her anytime soon. Like he was in the new relationship, and then she's in the apartment and he's like, holy shit. That was such a shocking moment for him. You know, can you imagine what he was thinking after
I
his
love that.
line? Yeah.
I love that scene.
Unreal.
It could not have been more thrown together. Trevor has a robe. He's got a towel around his neck under the robe. The new girlfriend is painting the walls with a roller. And Trevor comes out from like just taking a steam bath or something. It was great.
That was too much. Yeah.
That could have been its own. That could have been its own movie for sure, Trevor. So ultimately, I mean, the movie is fun. It's urban legend. It's 90s. It doesn't fully make sense. I maybe it doesn't have to, but this reminds me of a team that makes it to the conference finals of the NFL, makes it to the AFC Championship finals, loses the conference finals, but no one expected it to be there anyway. They were a wild card team, and they're like, "Whoa, wait a second, Tennessee Titans are pretty good. Whoa, they went 9-7 during the regular season, but now they're good." And then we enjoy it, but there's no way it can be a great team. So it's a fun movie. It's urban legend, but there's some holes in it, and it makes it a fun watch, though, I would say.
Yeah. The whole leap from Candyman being the killer to Helen being the new killer, that part I think they could have massaged a little better, you know?
Yep.
Because you're right. Like the thing you're asking with the alternate universe question is like, so where's the baby? You know, like, is the baby?
Yeah, where's the baby been this whole time? Who's feeding the baby?
Is the baby right? The baby needs food. The baby needs to be changed. Like, is the baby in the projects, just like in a section of the building that no one can get to? Or is Helen like keeping the baby somewhere, like where Candyman is actually taking care of her? That part doesn't make any sense.
All right, let's do the categories. Okay, categories for Candyman. Category number 1, best scene. Here are your nominees for best scene of Candyman. Dinner scene with the professors, first trip to Cabrini Green Apartments, or Helen's funeral, or write in your own best scene. For me, it's dinner with the professors. Everybody's smoking. Everybody is in their own world. Each professor looks totally different. I'm sure they were chair of a different department. And then the one professor essentially lays out the entire movie.
He's great. I'm with you. That's definitely my favorite scene too. Is when he asks how her thesis is going, and she says like, "Oh, we went to Cabrini Green," and he instantly goes, "Ha! Candyman country, and then just tells the whole story better than like she was gonna like. It's so good, you know. He gives you all the history too. Like he essentially
Right.
he already knows more about it than Helen does, even though she's been trying to research it for the last like 3 months. You know, he's such a dirtbag. And then
Great 90s laugh too.
his hair's gross. He's just a gross guy. And then even Trevor like realizes that this is a massacre. And then at one point, Trevor just like looks at Helen and is like, Helen, please, like, please. And then she just lights a cigarette and then just loses, you know, like she has no rebuttal. He says, because remember, Helen says, we're going to bury you. And then he says that he wrote a paper about it 10 years ago. And then he says directly back to her, he's like, so tell me, how are you going to bury me? You know? And then she doesn't say anything, you know? It's like, it's just such a weird, it's such a good scene. And then like the scene sets you up for like Helen's success, you know? Cause then you're like, cool, now we got another dirtbag that like, once she gets the story, she can actually bury him, you know? And then it doesn't happen, you know? And you never see him come back again. It is weirdly like Helen is like another victim too. Like Helen's whole future is just dampened by this whole thing, you know? Like she would have had a promising career as an academic if only this got out, but the Candyman kind of doesn't want that, I guess, you know? So
yeah, I guess.
That the professor's going against Helen, the Candyman's going against Helen.
Trevor obviously going against Helen.
The only person who isn't going against Helen is her friend who gets murdered when they're supposed to like work together on their thesis. Remember, her friend comes over to like say what's up to Helen.
Yeah.
And Helen's like, no, don't come in. And then she gets slaughtered by the Candyman.
Only one on her side. Yeah.
Like, that's not trying to actively crush Helen, you know? So sad. Even the little boy kind of fucks Helen over when he sends her into the bathroom, and then like obviously the henchmen are behind him. Like he could have yelled or something, you know, he could have been like, Helen, get out, or like
that's true.
Instead, he just lets her get her ass kicked, you know?
Yeah.
Really
that's
sad.
true.
Poor Helen.
Alternate storyline, we could have went Helen is just Charlie Brown, urban Charlie Brown in this movie. Mm-hmm. As no help from anyone. What do you think Trevor and that long-haired professor's relationship was like? Do you think they hung? Do you think they were bros?
They smashed together. They totally
drinking
like,
buddies. Definitely drinking buddies.
They're all they had affairs together. They go, you know, he's married probably. They go to the strip club together. Like they are classic like professor bros. Yeah. And then the way they act like at dinner, you know, like you know that Trevor kind of takes the back seat to this guy, you know, like that guy drives the ship when they go out.
And you think he was the alpha?
Taps into his hand a little bit, I'm sure, and then like chips in a little bit. But that guy's definitely like he holds court when they hang out for sure.
Yeah, Helen definitely.
I feel like I get a little bit of a department chair, associate professor vibe from them. You know, like Trevor works with that guy, but that guy also probably is kind of his boss a little bit, I feel like. Yeah, you know, they're goofy as hell for sure. They do fucked up shit together for sure.
Helen definitely takes the loss in that dinner party. She takes a hard L. They should have wrote her one good comeback line.
Yeah. No, even her friend doesn't say anything at her defense. You know, like her friend's at the dinner too, and she's just kind of like cringing. So, yeah, Helen gets dumped on that dinner, unfortunately. I would have liked a bonus scene after where Helen's just kind of bitching to Trevor, like, right before they're getting ready for bed, being like, why didn't you tell me he already wrote a Candyman paper? And Trevor, I don't know, I had a lot of research going on. Or like, it would have been fun if like that was Trevor's job, is to like find out if there were any Candyman stories out there already. And like, he just completely dropped the ball. And like Helen could have gotten angry at him for that and like asked him why he didn't tell her that.
Yeah.
It's such a hole in her whole research, is like, of course you can't do a paper that has already been done, Helen, you know?
Yeah.
Such an error.
There could have been a great scene where they're getting ready for bed after the dinner party, and then Trevor trashes the professor in bed, and he's like, well, don't listen to him. He's a horse's ass. And then Helen gets mad at him. He's like, why didn't you defend me at the table, you asshole? And then they have this whole fight. That would have been great. I'm already all in on the Trevor sequel.
I would love to see more of Trevor, and that professor too. Trevor's a stupid character.
Any extra points or nomination for best scene being the opening scene, where the guy and the girl say Candyman into the mirror, sets up the whole movie, which I gotta say, they're about to like get it on and do it. And the girl is like, hey, you want to try this Candyman thing? Any dude would be like, hell no. What the hell for? Yeah. Why are you derailing this? I'm trying to get to second base here.
Maybe he was just kind of like, let me just go with this, maybe it's her thing, like
right. And this girl's freaky like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, I'm going to yes and with this one,
maybe
I'm not going to, if she's into this Candyman stuff, like, let me just see where this goes,
Yeah. Not a best scene of the movie nominee, but I still enjoyed it. I also like how she goes like, he says Candyman like 4 times and she's like, no one's ever gotten past 4. He could have been like, how many times have you told dudes to do this?
Definitely not her first rodeo when like she starts referring to no one being able to do this yet. Okay. I know. Yeah, well, his doubt is short-lived because he meets a quick end.
Category number 2, best quote. Here are my nominees. Best quote number 1. When the two like janitor ladies are talking to Helen, and one of them says, I read in the paper Candyman killed her. I'm like, what paper did you read this in? that a paper reported on a mythological figure.
Yeah.
Quote number 2, I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch.
God, that's a good one.
And quote number 3 is from our favorite Trevor. When his girlfriend says, I was going to make us dinner, he goes, okay, whatever. My favorite quote, it has to be, I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch. The guy says it, and then we get to hear the police lineup of all the suspects saying it. That had me rolling. But those are my nominees for quotes. Which one is yours, or do you have another one?
All right, let me address the funny thing. I love I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch, because you hear it again, and then the funny thing is that, like, if you're the guy who said that, why would you say it the exact same way you said it when you committed the crime?
Yeah.
There's so many different emphases you can put on it. Like, I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch. But he says it the exact same way, and it's like, you just crucified yourself. You could say, hey, I heard you're looking for a Candyman, bitch.
Yeah.
But he says it exactly the same way. It's like, dude, well, you kind of did yourself in there,
He should have gave it like a question mark at the end. I heard you're looking for a Candyman, bitch?
Yeah.
Really ham it up. He just incriminates himself.
Yeah. But he said it note for note the same, and then she's like, it's 5. And then even the detective's like, nice. Yeah, we thought
right. The detective also just looks like he's like 7 days away from retiring. The
detective he did a 180 on Helen too. When they get so pissed at her in the interrogation room, he goes from being like the nice teddy bear father type detective to just like straight trying to get Helen locked up for murder. It was, he's good. Okay, I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch is probably my favorite line too. Second one, I already said it, but it's when Trevor says, what's the matter, baby? Did you make another boo-boo? I love that line. That one made me laugh out loud. And is that it? That's probably it. Those are my and then I love when the douchebag professor says, ha, Candyman. That was my I just love the way he says that. So those are my favorite lines.
All good quotes. Hard to beat. I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch, because we get to hear it 10 times right after that.
So much, yeah.
Category number 3. This is a fun one. Person who's in their own movie award. Jake the Kid, Professors at the Dinner, or Trevor are the nominees. I think we already know the answer is Trevor. But
yeah, Trevor's a great one. It wouldn't be a horror movie, but you could do like a spin-off with Trevor where it's like, kind of like, did you ever see the show Californication with Duchovny? That would essentially be Trevor's show, I feel like.
That'd be good.
douchey professor who's like kind of just in it for like the easy life and like never gonna settle down, but like smart enough to float by. I think that would be his show, and I might check out a couple of episodes if he's got some funny lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Jake the Kid, I could see being a 5-episode Netflix series type of thing, and the professors at the dinner table, uh, maybe like Apple TV. That strikes as an Apple TV type of production.
What's your angle for Jake the Kid? What kind of show do you think that would be?
Oh, maybe Jake the Kid getting out of foster care and getting back into school, making friends, maybe playing sports. Maybe Jake gets into youth basketball type of thing.
Yeah, I really like that. I like kind of like kind of like a Goodwill Hunting style movie for Jake.
Ooh, yeah.
Like he meets a mentor, and like they have like a good relationship, but like the mentor has different problems too. I think Jake in a mentor movie would be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm in for that.
But kind of like Goodwill Hunting meets The Sixth Sense. Like Jake's got some type of like supernatural ability too.
Oh, yeah, maybe something was imparted to Jake in the supernatural.
Yeah. Like there's like a little bit of a spooky quality to Jake, but it's also kind of like a heartwarming. Oh, like Simon Birch meets The Sixth Sense a little bit, Yeah.
I like that.
I would be down for a Jake show.
Okay. Category number 4, pending questions. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 pending questions for this movie. Question number 1, who does a thesis on Candyman? Could you turn this into any college and have this looked at and actually get a grade on it and get a degree from a thesis on Candyman?
I mean, I know this is a Hollywood movie, but like that's essentially like a 11th grade like book report she's doing, it's just like you're just telling the story again essentially, and then even then she didn't even know the story, like researching this, and she didn't know to go to a library and just read about it. She was like kind of just trying to get the story from the people there and like talking to the black janitors,
which they just stuck their head out the hallway and be like, hey, you ever heard of Candyman? And the other one's like, hey, talk about Candyman.
Right. Yeah, I was like, that's why we need libraries, Helen. Like go to a library and search Candyman, so kind of, she needed a little more direction there, and then the other thing is like, okay, like what else is your thesis about? Like you have to, the thesis has to have another step to it, Helen. Like you got to have something about the social class there, or like, income inequality or something. So I think I would love to see some scenes with her and her academic advisor, maybe another Trevor type with his feet up on the desk, just like looking at a magazine while Helen's telling him her idea, just going, that sounds great, Helen.
That's great. That's great. Keep it up. This
isn't going to fly. Like, that's not a good thesis. So, yeah. Funny thing for her to be doing a thesis on, and I wish they would just talk more about it. I would like to know more about the project.
Yeah, they should have made her like just a reporter for a local paper, like not like the Tribune, not the Times, like a local second tier paper. And she was that would have made at least a little more sense.
The other funny thing,
not a thesis.
The other funny thing worth considering is like, are theses group projects? Like, can you do it with another person and then just like each do one thesis? I always thought you had to do I always thought it was a solo show, but it seemed like her and her friend like paired up to do like a thesis about the Candyman. So that even lends more of a high school quality to it. Is like she's working with a buddy on it. I had a lot of questions about that school she's going to and what the standards are and stuff.
Yeah, good question. What was that school like? Was that a community college? Was that was that an accredited college? What was going on?
Group work on the thesis.
My other pending question, did Jake have parents? Jake is just roaming around. He's drinking coffee at the police station with no parents. I don't know what Jake's parental guidance was like in this movie. It seems like he was very much on his own.
Another fave line, this is kind of a paraphrase, but it's when like the cop is like, he basically more or less says like, what do we need Jake for? We have you now. Like sends Jake on his way. And it's like Jake's 5 years old. Like you gotta make sure he's okay. I think the thinking with Jake was that like it just shows how fast you have to grow up in the projects, like little Jake, even though he's 6 years old, like because he lives in such a brutal environment, he's already kind of like an adult, he drinks coffee, he's kind of jaded already. I think that's what they were going for with Jake's character.
Yeah, he dropped a dime on Helen in the bathroom when the street thugs.
Yeah, he kind of didn't give a fuck when Helen got her ass kicked. Like,
yeah, it doesn't really have a conscience in the end of it.
Yeah. Jake is it's a sad story for Jake. There's probably many like him in those projects where they're just kids who are just really rough around the edges and just forced to grow up fast.
Next question, I think we answered it. What was Trevor's cheat game like? We know he hung out with his professors, got a new crop of chicks every semester, wears bathrobes, and has the girls paint his walls.
Right.
Next question, and we sort of answered this as well. Are apartments really built that way with the hole in the mirror? And we answered it with a lot of them were. They absolutely were. Hence the true crime in the late 80s from it. I think building codes have remedied that situation. Next question, why did Helen become the new Candyman at the end? Candyman had killed a lot of people. Right. Why was Helen chosen to be the new Candyman and then go after Trevor in the bathroom?
Right.
Didn't fully answer that one. I didn't get it. We needed some special connection, or maybe she was related to Candyman. And then, like, my last kind of pending question is, why was he evil in general? Like, he was the son of an artist, had an affair with the white girl in the early 19th century. They killed him. Mm-hmm. And then he just became evil. And now he's a bad guy. So I didn't fully get why he was like that.
So the way that I'm kind of thinking about it now is that Candyman was like unfulfilled, and he like wanted his due. He like wanted his slice of the pie. So maybe he develops a relationship interest in Helen because she's kind of like his old girlfriend, and like maybe he falls in love with Helen thinking that it's his old girlfriend, and like mm-hmm. That's why he wants her to join him,
That makes sense.
Maybe. And then honestly too, like maybe now that he's ready to settle down with Helen, he's like, I don't want to kill anymore. Like now that you are my woman and like I've made you eternal or whatever, like now you can do the killing and I can just like relax now and like retire essentially, but none of that is actually really said, or like I don't know what he wants. I don't
know either.
He's going for, but it's all kind of floating there, like Helen and him want to be together, but who knows? Honestly, who knows? It's very 90s, and it's like a music video too. It just has that feel where like it suggests a lot of things and then kind of leaves you,
That's the biggest question this whole movie is, what was your ultimate motivation, Candyman? What's your deal? What's your deal, man? I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch. What's your deal?
Yeah. And then so then the other aspect was like, there was the supernatural Candyman, but then there was like a real guy named Candyman who like had a hook too. And also,
oh yeah, the gang member guy. He was walking around calling himself Candy. That was confusing too.
Also a Candyman there. So like, I don't know if he knew that he was tapping into the urban legend. It was just really, I wanted more information from everything,
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of confusing. It was a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah.
Next category, best part of the movie. I wrote down jump scares, scariness of housing projects, but I think I have two main ones. I got number one, Candyman's winter coat was pretty epic. Yeah. Pretty awesome winter coat from Candyman. But my best part of the movie, I think, is just the perpetuation of an urban legend. That hooked us all. We're all into stories. We all believe them, no matter how ridiculous. So I think urban legend is the best part of this movie. Second place, Candyman's winter coat.
Yeah. I think best part of the movie for me, I kind of, best part of the movie for me was the scene where the psychiatrist gets murdered. I thought that was like because at that point the goof has happened like 3 times already, where it's like Helen gets taken to another room, she's put alone with somebody, and then she kills them, or the person ends up dead, and you're like, how many times are they going to do this, and then when she's with the psychiatrist, you're kind of wondering, like, is this going to happen again? And sure enough, like, it does. And then the plot moves forward, like, and then he opens the window for her, and then she can escape, and the rest happens. But it kind of takes him 3 of the same scenes to get there. So and then you're kind of wondering, maybe she won't get out, but that scene kind of finally lets you know, like, okay, she can get out of any situation, and then it's a really satisfying kill too, because he's like a cocky, like, oh, I've seen this 18 times today, like, and then he's like, even like doing the classic doctor questions where like he's like condescending on her as he's talking, like,
I love the condescending psychiatrist in all these movies where they don't believe a word they say.
Candyman is someone you can see.
Is the Candyman here right now?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Is the Candyman telling you to do anything? Like, just like those questions, and then like as he's asking it, like he's like, oh, and then it's hooked from behind or something. So that was a cool scene for me, because it's very 80s style slasher,
Yeah. I also liked how you could tell how they shot the scene. They just told Candyman, the guy playing Candyman, to duck behind the chair and then pop out and kill a guy.
Yeah, that's probably my fave scene. And then the second favorite scene is the dinner scene. I just think that's such a good, like, I was so interested in what everyone was saying in that scene. And probably third favorite scene would be the Trevor kill at the end of the movie. I thought that was a cool scene for his like sorrow and like his character development a little bit. And then also like establishing her as like the new urban legend. I thought, they put a nice little bow on the movie.
If they could have tied that in, that could be very easily be the best part of the movie. Also, I'll give a nominee to cinematography. The voiceovers and the sound in this movie are the best part of this movie as well. From a technical aspect, they did a really good job with the scary voice of Candyman voiceovering the beginning.
Yeah.
And in the shots of it too looked good. So I'll give that as the best part of the movie. Last category, make this movie better. I have for mine better casting, less storylines. Okay, so we can't get Sandra Bullock, we can't get Eddie Murphy, but you know who we could get in 1992? Gillian Anderson.
Yeah.
Could have got Gillian Anderson. This was right at the dawning of X-Files, so we could have got her. And then as Candyman, Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh.
We could go Lawrence Fishburne. I believe this was this was post Boys in the Hood, pre-Matrix, of course. I think we could have got Lawrence Fishburne as this for this movie. The story goes Quentin Tarantino wanted Lawrence Fishburne for Pulp Fiction for the character of Jules, but he denied it. So maybe he wouldn't have agreed to do this movie because he was going for the big roles. But if we had Gillian Anderson and Lawrence Fishburne and eliminated about 65% of the other stories in this movie, I think this would be a better movie.
Yeah. All right. Let me tell. Okay. Those are good ideas. Mine are open it up a little bit. So maybe, okay. So instead of Gillian Anderson being the character of Helen, what if you found out that Helen was like Scully's niece or something like that, and it kind of like it's like all contained in the Marvel universe now a little bit, she gets a phone call on their phone, and like you hear the message says like, hey, it's me, Scully, just wanted to see if you were still going to go to grandma's this weekend. And then it's like a little Easter egg, but you're like, damn, that's Scully is like her aunt or like her cousin or something like that, and then it kind of explains a little more, because then it's like, okay, like, so her older cousin is like a successful FBI agent, like now I get why she's kind of doing the PhD. It's like an academic or a high performing family a little bit. I don't know. That would be pretty cool. And then the other thing I would like is during this time, what if what if Candyman was played by Shaq? And like they
Kazam Shaq?
yeah. Like
Mm.
totally just went the Shaq route where it's like a 7-foot Candyman, you know? And like, of course, like Shaq's voice wouldn't, I don't know if the voiceover would be as good if you heard Shaq's voice, but they wouldn't have to use his voice because everything's a voiceover anyway, you know? So they could keep the same voice, but like it's just Shaq's imposing figure, you know? That would be, and then Shaq's obviously very young at that time. So he's like, he's a little like he's lanky but tall. Like I think it would just be a spooky way to do it.
Where
Um,
was Shaq in the league in 92? Was he in the NBA already in 92 or was he in college then?
I think he was with the Magic in '92.
He was already in the pros
Maybe.
in 92?
Look up his rookie year. I don't know. I don't know if he was. It had to have been within a year of '92.
It would have been, it's got to be right around
He
there.
got drafted in '92, maybe.
So,
So yeah, I would like to see Shaq as the Candyman. Maybe.
oh, okay. Well, we got Shaq as Kazam. We got Shaq in Blue Chips. What other movie was Shaq
Also
in?
Shaq Steele.
He was Shaq Steele. He was
Yeah,
doing
so he did
doing
like films and stuff, you
he was
know.
doing rap albums. Don't forget Shaq Diesel
Mhm.
was his rapper name. So we could have got Shaq. I would love to hear Shaq say, "I heard you're looking for Candyman, bitch."
And then a cool part would be like, what if like there's a little payoff where like, okay, Shaq has the exact same like costume on, like he's got the big overcoat and he's like covered up kinda, and he's got the hook and everything. But then when he opens up his coat to expose himself, like you see that he's got like some shorts on or something like that. You know, like he's got or like some socks or something, you know, like something that like is very Shaq, you know,
Some
like
product placement too, because Shaq was a big
yeah,
product placement guy, like a Pepsi can in his Reeboks or
he's
something.
wearing shorts, you know, like, and then you're like, oh, haha, you know, that's another route. I don't know.
Shaq's rookie year with the Magic, 1992.
Nice.
So what if Shaq had this like PR team and they were like, Shaq, let's get you in a movie before you even start playing. And then let's shoot the movie now. You know, you're playing. By the time the movie's done, it's Christmas time. We're talking dolls. We're talking Shaq hats. We're talking movie posters. There's a world where I think you could have talked Shaq into this.
I like that.
Shaq as Candyman.
That's a bold move to get drafted into the national NBA, and then the first thing you do is you just make a movie. You know,
Yeah.
like you skip some practices because you got to go make a movie. That's kind of like the Mark Sanchez route.
Yes.
Remember he did that GQ photo shoot or something,
Right.
like,
Right.
before he even played a game or something, and everyone was just like, this guy's going full like douchebag route, you know? He's like, he's already living the lifestyle and like hasn't even really done anything in the league yet, you know? I think the spin was negative on that, but I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about it, you know? You're exploring the waters a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Didn't Jim McMahon of the Bears famously take a helicopter when the Bears drafted him and he gets out of the helicopter like to the Bears office with like a Budweiser?
That's right. That's right.
I love a rookie that has a huge head and shows up to the team with just like all ego, all panache, all attitude, and everybody just hates on him. Like just wants him to fail, but you still sort of root for him. So Shaq is Candyman. I went Lawrence Fishburne. You went X-Files tie-in. I just went full X-Files Gillian Anderson. And then this kicks off the urban legend, the 90s thriller. My last question is this movie a slasher, a thriller, a horror movie, or other? I'm going to go with it's a combination of a thriller horror movie. I don't think it's a slasher because it doesn't have the gore. I think it has little tidbits of a thriller because we have a hint into the psychological with Helen falling apart. But it's a horror movie because it's ultimately scary. Candyman can be summoned very easily. So I go with a thriller / horror movie for it.
Do you remember that? I would say for sure it's psychological horror. You know, I would put it in that category. If you were like placing it in Blockbuster, it would be like the psychological horror section. You know, another thing I would like is this movie's ripe with like scenes where you could use the imagery from the movie to make a good like featured song in the movie music video. You know, do you remember when Seal did that song Kissed by a Rose for Batman Forever?
Oh yeah.
And like like the music video like used scenes from the movie, and then it also like did some insert scenes of like Seal with like the same motifs, you know, like as if he was a part of the movie. I would love if they did that for Candyman too. They could do like Eyes Without a Face or something like that, you know, and then like
Candyman the musical.
yeah, and then like
Yeah.
like imagery of Candyman in with real scenes from Candyman, you know. I would also love like if it like kind of did that too, you know. You could see the music video of Candyman.
Candyman lives on. This
Yeah.
was the Running It Back Halloween edition full review. I don't think there's anything left to run back on this whole Candyman. We did the true crime. We did the multiple true crimes. We did the movie. We did the categories. We covered it all for Halloween.
And they've made many Candymans after Candyman too. I think it like spawned like at least 2 or 3 more movies. Maybe more. Honestly, there might be 4 or 5 Candyman. they wrung the towel with Candyman, you know? So yeah, it's a great movie. We deep dived it. And I feel like we haven't even heard the last from Candyman. I feel like there's still more to get out of this, you know, because it's just there's so many ideas that haven't been explored yet. I feel like this isn't the last we've heard of Candyman. We'll be seeing this franchise for a few more years, I think.
Would you say we're still looking for Candyman, bitch?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. We're going to get him.
Okay, that is the show, everyone. That is the Running It Back edition of the movie Candyman from 1992. What'd you think? Did you see it? Did you not see it? Did you say Candyman in the mirror 5 times? And did you get murdered? If you did, I don't know how you're listening to this. No, you probably didn't. That was Andrew Ramirez, my own brother, joining me. I want to thank him. I want to thank you for listening. And don't forget, November 11th, come see me do live stand-up comedy right here on the West Coast. Flappers Comedy Club is where I'm at. flapperscomedy.com is where you go, or straight to me for tickets. You can see me. I want to wish everyone a happy Halloween. This is dropping the Friday before Halloween, so everybody have a good time and be careful out there. Don't go into any housing projects. Don't say Candyman into a mirror 5 times. And ultimately, don't get killed by anybody with a hook for a hand. That's my 2 cents. Follow that. For Patrick Ramirez, for Andrew Ramirez, this was Running It Back. We will see you next time.